Hey Pilates Stratosphere. I want to take just a short few minutes today to talk to you about something that I've been thinking about, which is the phenomena of spinning your wheels, working all of the hours, being super busy, but not actually getting anywhere. And the concept that I want to talk to you about here is something called Parkinson's Law. And this was created in a book that I have in front of me, an actual paper book. Smells like a secondhand paper book from the 1950s, I think, by C. Northcote Parkinson, published here in 1958, copyright 1957. And Parkinson's Law is very simple. It says that work expands to fill the time allocated for it. And Parkinson did his original research in the Royal Navy bureaucracy in Britain in between the world wars. And what he noticed was that at the end of the First World War, but after the end of the First World War through the 1920s, there were actually fewer ships in commission in the Navy. So the Navy, the number of ships in the Navy reduced. There were fewer ships and there were fewer officers and men. Fewer sailors in the Navy. But the dockyard officials and clerks increased and the Admiralty officials increased. So there were more bureaucrats to administer a smaller Navy. And he subsequently did, researched into other sort of administrative organisations and found the same phenomena, that essentially the number of people or the amount of work done by the people within the organisation had essentially no relationship with the actual amount of output of the organisation. So, like in this example, the amount of administration done by these administrators had no relationship to the number of actual ships and sailors in the Navy that they were ostensibly administering. So how does that apply to us in the Pilates world? Well, we do things that are not necessary. We do things that are shoulds. We do things that are nice to haves. We do things because we think it's the right thing to do, like not ethically I'm talking about. It's like we think like, if I'm it's kind of, I guess shoulds really covers that as well. But, because we do things out of habit, that we once had a useful purpose, but no longer are relevant. And we hold on to, we say yes to things that we shouldn't say yes to. We hold on to clients that we would rather not and who don't serve us, and we're not necessarily serving them. And we end up being super busy and yet not getting traction with our business or with our Pilates career, with our, building our skills, building our client base, because we're busy doing the wrong things. Now, when I say the wrong things, what I mean is the things that aren't the most important things that are going to make the biggest difference. So an exercise that I learned from Warren Buffett, he didn't teach it to me personally, but I read it in a book, is to make a list of the 25 highest priorities in your life and spend some time and actually rank them in order from most important to least important. And then circle the top 5, tear the sheet of paper off below number 5 and above number 6, and throw out the rest. So and the lesson there is really just focus on a very, very few things. And so another way that I think about this in my own life, because I'm certainly prone to this as well, it's very easy for me to get distracted and focus on things, or spend time on things that are essentially just distractions from the real work of building my business and improving the quality of the education that we deliver. And so there are a couple of questions I got from Tim Ferriss, actually. And the first question, I love it, is what are you actually trying to achieve? And the second question is, what is the one thing that, if done well, would make everything else on your to-do list either easier or irrelevant? I love that question. I think it's such a powerful question. What's the one thing that, if done well, would make everything else on your list either easier or irrelevant? So I try and remind myself of that daily. And another thing that I've found very useful is to just really, think about, to step outside of the day-to-day, at least once a week, and reflect on, okay, what is my goal for the end of the year? What is my goal for the end of the year for my business or for my skills, for my education, etc.? And what is the single biggest, most important thing that I can do right now to move myself towards that goal, to move my business towards that goal? So that, I find, really helps me get perspective on what's important, and to avoid, to say no to everything else. And so we get to the title of this episode, which I've called the not to do list. And this is a concept I got from Tim Ferriss as well. And so, the concept is very simple. It's what it says. Okay. So we often have a to-do list, but I think, I love this idea of the not to-do list. And so what I put on my not to-do list are all the things that I'm tempted to do because I, quote, should do them, or because I feel obliged to do them, or because I just do them out of habit, or because they're kind of tempting and kind of shiny objects that distract me from the real mission. And so this is going to be different for each of us. So I can't tell you what to put on your not to do list. But for me, it's things, they're the obvious things, like just, wasting hours on social media or, whatever. But even things that are like ostensibly, work or productive, I think for a lot of us can be the biggest time sinks, the biggest time saps, when you're working hard on something that is not the most important thing, the highest leverage use of your time. So there are a few ways you can decide what goes on your not to do list. Okay, so you can ask a couple of those questions that I already mentioned, like, okay, what am I trying to achieve here? What's the ultimate outcome that I want? And then what is the one thing that, if done well, would make everything else easier or irrelevant? Then everything else goes on your not to do list, right? So one thing goes on your to do list each day, and then everything else goes on your not to do list each day. There's another method that I use sometimes, to another little kind of mind frame that I use to think through what goes on my not to do list, is the value per hour of each activity. So I think about, what have I done today? What are all the things I've done today? So if I think about my actual day today, well, I recorded a live podcast. I recorded half a dozen videos for this Launchpad program that we're building out at the moment. I wrote and recorded a webinar to explain the Launchpad program. I edited a video captions for another video I've made explaining our certification program. I had a meeting with someone on our training team to talk about one of the assessments that we're doing in the diploma and how to improve that. And I went for a drive and got my bass guitar amp fixed. Now, of all of that, if I think about, the dollar per hour value of each of those activities, I can rate the dollar per hour value of each activity based on either of two criteria. One is like, what is the actual revenue that activity generates? So, for example, the webinar that I wrote and recorded, well, if done well, that will generate, hundreds of thousands of dollars for us. because it's going to be an evergreen webinar that will sit within our sort of marketing sequence, and people will, watch it at their own time. And if they like what they see, they will enroll in our Launchpad program at, several thousand US dollars per enrollment, right? So getting that webinar right is an extremely high value activity, right? So the 3 hours that I spent on that today might be $50,000 per hour activity, right? Whereas editing the captions on the certification video, which I just spent an hour on, is an activity that, whilst it will generate, possibly some additional revenue for the business because people will be able to read the captions and, understand the video a bit better, I could actually pay someone $10 an hour to do that for me, and they would do just as good a job or possibly a better job because they'd be fully focused on it. So that is literally a $10 an hour activity because I could have paid someone $10 an hour to do it, and yet I did it. So that was a waste of my time, and that should go on my not to do list. So that is going on my not to do list. So, dear listener, that is how I organise my time, and I'm certainly not perfect, as you can see. I spent an hour on a $10 an hour activity today, but I did spend the bulk of my day on much more high leverage activities. And I really like that, Mr. ranking each activity that you do in terms of dollars per hour, either that it generates for you or what it would cost you to pay someone else to do that to do that task. And then anything that is, you focus on the highest leverage tasks, the highest dollar per hour tasks, and pay someone to do the cheapest dollar per hour tasks. So I really like that one. And, I think overall, I also like the exercise of just stepping back once a week. And the way I step back is I close off all my communication devices, no Slack, no message, no email, no phone, etc. And I go and sit on the sofa where I don't usually work, and I stare out the window and I have a cup of coffee, and I, read some kind of inspiring book or, listen to some kind of audio book or whatever that is going to inspire me, not with instructions, but just kind of a positive mindset. And then I let my mind free associate about the business, and I ask myself questions about like where do I want to, what do I want to achieve this year, in 5 years, where do I, what's important to me, why am I doing this, and then once I'm clear on that, I ask, well, what's the single biggest constraint that is stopping me from achieving that right now? And that helps me focus on what's truly important for me, today, this week, and this month. So that is it, dear listener. I hope you found that helpful, the not to do list. If you are busy all of the hours, but you are not making progress, this could be a really helpful concept, a really useful thing for you to implement. I'd love to know what, if you go through any of these exercises, what ends up on your not to do list. So if you do this exercise, please reach out to me. You can ping me as a DM on Instagram. My details are below in the show notes. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and much more productive rest of your day and rest of your week.